All right, so this is DHT oil tankers, and this is a second video backed by popular demand. We're going to look at all kinds of good stuff: balance sheets, historic trading prices, current trading, look at their fleet. This is Brian Lewis with MMT Investing, and I don't I don't have a camera. I guess that doesn't really matter as long as the chart works is fine. So back here, so this company started in 2006, kind of at the height of this oil buzz, and I mean they got really early valuations up to 220, and then with the auto scroll on, you can watch this thing come down to 60, come down to 15, come down to 9, and then yeah, so that sort of $3 or $4 to $9 is the range we're trading in now, right around a historic bottom of, I mean, it's not that historic, whatever it is, 15 years or something. So let's get in here on the chart and start drawing some stuff. November, December. Yeah, so a lot of the tankers had really good kind of third quarter of last year. And let's draw the S&P on here, which is here, here, up here. So here's the dead cat bounce and the crash, and then we get the bull trap on the S&P. And here's what DHT did during that time. They just crushed it the whole time. So let's get into the balance sheets and all that stuff here and look at some strategies, all kinds of good stuff. So DHT almost always smashes that like button right now to help me out with the YouTube algorithm. And you can see they got a pretty good up off the dead cat, and then they got the double up on the bull trap swings. And now most of these oil tanker companies have started coming down already before the S&P has started coming down, which is interesting. And I think they got kind of a false top with a little bit more hype than kind of this range is probably where the actual top should have been. And DHT, let's talk about it. So I mean, in my first DHT video, I said that they have the worst balance sheet in the oil tanker industry, which is not quite true. I found several that have worse balance sheets than them. I think they're like third or fourth worst at this point, but it still is not a very good balance sheet. Their assets to liabilities is fine, it's even, but their cash on hand to short-term debt is not good. They're cash negative, and not cash negative as in like losing money, but their cash to debt is not a good ratio. And I don't think that matters for these companies because they're full employment and full of oil, and I mean, I don't think they're going to have any trouble. The daily rates of running the tankers is going crazy, like 10 times normal rates now. Like 1% of the tanker space is left to negotiate. So I guess we'll talk about the fleet. Um, so DHT tankers, I said I didn't know what that stood for. I looked on their site and it doesn't say anywhere what DHT stands for. And in the comments, Dan Chatka said that DHT stands for double hull tankers. So I looked it up, and the company used to be called Double Hull Tankers Incorporated, and now they just changed the name to DHT Holdings. and and so yes, their tankers they have a very specific fleet and a very specific type of boat, and it's a newer fleet, and they have 27 VLCC double hull tankers. So VLCC is the very large, uh, what's it stand for? Very large crude cruisers or something like that. Anyways, VL is very large. It's the biggest type of boat, and they're double hulled. So basically, these guys have big, badass boats, pretty new fleet. And their four newest boats they added in 2018, and they named them like Stallion and Mustang. They're all horse names. Um, it's funny. But so yeah, so DHT, I think as far as their fleet goes, I mean, I counted 27 vessels when I looked up their fleet manifest, and almost all of them fly the Hong Kong flag. And then there's a couple that fly FIL, which I don't know which jurisdiction that is. It might be like the islands or the Mediterranean or somewhere. I typed in FIL jurisdiction into Google and it said Carthage, and I don't think that exists anymore. So I'm pretty sure they're not flying the Carthage flag. But DHT, as far as the tankers go, I think is the most ideal kind of tankers that you can have for this situation. I mean, they have the very large vessels. This entire company, this entire fleet is all specialized VLCC, very large tankers, and they're all double hulled, which probably doesn't matter that much for docking the things and holding oil. But it's a very specific fleet, and it's a small company that does exactly this one type of specific tanker that is exactly what is perfect for this conditions. That they're very large crude oil tankers. Because most of the fleets have different boats. They do different sized boats, and they do refined oil and crude oil and chemical and natural gas and all kinds of different stuff. And you're not really targeting crude oil tanker storage with a lot of the companies. But with this company, you get exactly that. You get crude oil storage tankers, and they're in China, which I think is a perfect location because China is going to be the first place to rebound soon, and I think that's great. And their balance sheet shouldn't be an issue. And I think it's almost an asset to have a bad balance sheet because the companies with the bad balance sheets seem to be bouncing higher than the other tanker companies, and they're at a lower historic kind of price to get now for longer term. So I think this might be my favorite tanker company. I really like the TK, the TNK tankers because TK does some different things. They do natural gas and shipyard services and stuff, but their crude oil tankers are all separated into a separate business under the TNK ticker symbol, and that's like a giant blue chip tanker company with a ton of boats. And I think that is a really good one. And there's a couple other ones like the Nordic tankers, Nordic American, or like the Greek one, which is Zakos. Those ones are good targeted oil tanker companies as well. But this one just seems like specifically tailored to the situation, just the fleet that they have and the location and not the balance sheet. But yeah, I think this is a really, really good tanker company. And it's at a really, really low price, like $5. And the fleet is small, but the boats are huge. So that's kind of a look at the company and where they're positioned. And then let's take a look at the day trading because things are coming down now, and I have projected on my S&P chart that the whole stock market is going to make another big move down, and then I'm going to be looking for a dead cat bounce, and then I'm going to be looking for another kind of bigger bull trap move. Whoa. All right. In the S&P chart, and that would look a little bit different in this chart because it would be this sort of long trend line. So I think this stock is a pretty good stock for a sort of a hold, like a buy and hold through the end of this crash and probably for the next 3 or 4 years. It could be a buy and hold, and this is not investment advice. This is just what I'm thinking about doing with this stock. And yeah, I don't really want to buy and hold anything through the crash because we're about halfway through a 3 to 4 month credit contraction down cycle. And like this whole period here is just really dangerous and kind of crazy market conditions. And even though the tankers are doing really well in these market conditions, they're still coming down with the crashes, and there's really no reason to be holding these long during the down moves. But if this thing comes down here, it's across the line, I think it'll probably shoot up on the dead cat and come back down, and it'll probably shoot up, like double shoot up on the bull trap. And that's about it. I mean, through the end of the cycle, I think we'll get a reversal into a monetary expansion phase at the end of the cycle sometime in June. And I think the tankers will still be okay in that phase, and there'll be a whole lot of stocks that are cheap and that'll do really well in this phase also. So I'm probably not as excited about the tankers over here, but I'm very, very excited about the tankers in this zone because this is the biggest up moves I've seen of anything else in the whole market. Besides maybe corporate bonds are doing some crazy up moves like this, and gold is doing really well, but it's not this big. So this is a long through the whole crash with these huge up moves. So this is something that you can do a call option on. So this is probably the only stocks I would consider doing a call option on during the crash are these tanker companies. And I want to try to avoid these down moves and then just get the ups, because the gains for the rest of the crash are only going to be on these ups, and there's no reason to hold it on the downs. Just get the ups. That's it. And then I think probably less of an oil tanker position here because there's just so many other options here. But then once we get out towards the presidential election, we should be switching into more of a stagflation thing, which is a monetary expansion but negative growth. And I think that kind of starts a bull market where these tankers are going to be really good for a few years. I said bull market. I meant to say bear market. Out around the presidential election, it should be switching into a more of a downward move. And then, so that's just kind of the outlook of the cycles, the long-term cycles, and how I think the tankers are gonna kind of hold up. I think they'll be pretty good in all the cycles, but I really like the ups here, and I think I like this out here. I'll have to see what's going on at that time, but I think they'll be good the whole time. There's just, you can kind of optimize the trading there with moving in and out of the cycles. And then I guess talk about the contango and the oil futures and all that stuff. So right now, I mean, people are saying that the oil prices are going negative, and that's not exactly correct. The oil prices are down, and people have the spot oil contracts, which require physical delivery. And then if you look at the oil futures prices, the future prices are up through the next kind of cycle, and then they start coming down towards the end of the year again. So the contango, all that means is that the contracts, if you have like a month contract or a 2-month contract, the spot price right now is lower than the future price. And if you're holding contracts that require physical delivery, there's a bunch of speculators that can't even do physical delivery. They're just holding the contract as a speculative kind of purchase, and they're waiting until this contract time limit runs out. But it's just like they have to get rid of the thing before it runs out. So they just have to dump it at a loss because of this difference between the spot price and the future price. So that's what the contango is. So as we move into the next cycle, we should be moving up here, and it won't be a contango situation, and the prices will be a little higher for oil. So I think all of that together is probably less awesome for the tankers, but I think they're still good. And then as we move down here, I think it'll be getting into another situation where we probably get another contango kind of situation, and I think the tankers should be good for a while. And we'll have to see what the future prices start looking like. We only have future projections out through, I think, October right now. So that's kind of a look at the oil prices and the tankers. And then this fleet is great. I mean, this is a really good fleet. It's all VLCC big tankers. They're the giant double hull tankers, and they're Hong Kong home base. They're flying the Hong Kong flag, most of these guys. And yeah, it's really good. And then I think that they're being negative, their cash to debt, the short term cash to debt is probably not going to be an issue at all because they're just going to be making so much money right now. They'll probably be cash flow positive by the end of this cycle, and then they'll be fine. So I'm not worried about the balance sheet at all on these guys. But I think this is one of my favorite tanker companies. They didn't get really the parabolic move. A lot of companies got a parabolic kind of move up at the second part of the bull trap. But most of those companies started down a little bit, then came back a little bit, and then like went crazy. So this company has been loaded with oil since day one of this issue, and they're full. So, so I mean, I guess on sort of a swing trading play, it may be a good idea to find a company that is more of a latecomer to the oil space, but I think they're all pretty much full now, anyways. So, so yeah, I'll do a recap video and look at kind of all the tankers and do like a top three for this and that. But this is a recap on the double hull tankers, which they don't call themselves that anymore. DHT Holdings Inc. And this is a really good fleet. That's really good. And I don't know what the upside is on this. I mean, if they were at 200 something, just like 10 years ago, they're at like $2 now instead of 200. I mean, if right now is the best time in history for oil tankers over the next 3 years, I mean, what is the upside on this? I mean, where could it go? It was at 200 recently. I have no idea. I have no idea that an upside target, but I mean, if it's doing this in the middle of a huge crash, that is impressive. And this is one of the only longs. Like even healthcare and stuff like that isn't going long like this. It's barely staying positive. And these things are just blasting upwards during the crash. So I mean, who knows? The next phase they could be even a steeper up without the contractions. I don't know. I'll have to look at that the next cycle a little bit closer before before I make any kind of decisions on what I think they're going to do. I'm going to have to do a little bit more research on the oil prices and all that. So, thank you, and please hit the like button to help me out with the YouTube algorithm. This is not trading advice. And I think that's it for now. I can't really go much farther than that. And then other than that, just to say that I'm not I'm not interested in any oil tanker companies for the next week or week and a half, 2 weeks, something like that, because I think the stock market is going to be coming down for a week or two, and want to I don't want to hold anything. Like everything's going to come down when it comes down, and including these, and there's no reason to hold them. I think cash is better than tankers over the next couple of weeks, and I think shorts are way better than cash over the next couple of weeks. You can make a lot of money on the downs. I have a lot of tech shorts and whatever. I mean, you can go look at my channel if you want to get short ideas. I have a bunch of short videos, and I have videos on all these tankers. I think I have 12 different tanker companies that I've looked at. There's more than I realized, and this is one of the best ones. So I do really like this one. They're going to be making it into my top 3 or top 5 videos for sure. And happy trading.